Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today I will share some useful information with you about syntactic semantics. I will discuss some of the topics that are related to syntactic semantics. One is contradiction, ambiguity, semantic anomaly, entailment, and presupposition. First of all, I will discuss with you about contradiction. Contradiction is the relation between two propositions such that if either is true, the other is necessarily false. It means that two sentence senses are contradictory if one entails the negation of other. So the sentence is always considered false because of the sense of the words in the sentence is not appropriate or not true. If one is true, the other must be false. For example, in sentence A, someone says that my necktie was cheap, and in the next day he says my necktie was expensive. So there are some contradictory. It means that the persons are lying, so they are raised a questions on the validity of this statement. Now, if we analyze these two statements, in which in the first statement it is said that my necktie was cheap. It means that first of all we have to identify whether the statement is true or not. So in the second, my necktie was expensive, then was it cheap? So there is we identify here is the opposite statement. So the opposite statement is given here about the same subject. So these are contradict to each other. As we know that words carries a meaning, and sense is the property of sentence. So if there are some contradictory statements, that is analyzed by or judged by the listeners or the readers. So speakers recognized when the meaning of one sentence contradicts to another sentence. It means that when the truth of one sentence necessarily implies the falseness of another sentence, and vice versa. Here are some examples that are given about the same persons. Edgar is the person name is Edgar, and Edgar is married in the first statement, and in the second statement Edgar is fairly rich. In the third statement Edgar is no longer younger, and in the fourth Edgar is a bachelor. So what here is written that in this sentence two of them are related in such a way that if one is true, the other must be false. So if we consider the example A, Edgar is married, then definitely it contradicts the example number D. If he is married, he is no longer a bachelor. Same is the case here implies with the example B and C. Example B and C are contradict to each other. So what we have identified here, a contradiction is a sentence that is necessarily false as a result of the senses of the words in it. Thus a contradiction is in a way the opposite of analytical sentence. It means that if one sentence is false, the other must be true, or if one is true, the other must be false. Few examples are given here, so we will analyze one by one. Here in the first example, Pamela considered the fact that her mother was alive and realized that it could not possibly be true. So here what we analyze that there is a kind of contradiction here, in that the same thing is said to be both a fact and not possible true. So there is a contradiction in this sentence. Here we analyze the second sentence, the animal is a vegetable. So as we know that contradiction is most centrally logical term, and according to our logic, animal cannot be a vegetable. So the both are providing, so animal and vegetables, the both are different things. So it is a contradictory statement. Both of John's parents are married to aunts of mine. So here in this example, this is not logically true because of the words used in this sentence, parents, married, and aunts. So it gives a completely contradiction or contradictory statements. In the next example, Yahya Khan was the first Prime Minister of Pakistan. So from these statements, we have identified that Yahya Khan was actually not the first Prime Minister of Pakistan. So what we have identified here, same sentence sense are contradictory here. So they cannot be true simultaneously under one circumstances. Come to next example, that is Sarah is handsome. So this must be false because Sarah is a woman and a woman cannot be handsome. So this word is peculiar to man. So Sarah is beautiful, not handsome. In the next example, here the question is raised, is this RAM is female? So as we all know that RAM is a device that is used in the computer. So how it could be a female. So RAM and females are two different things. So these are contradictory to each other. Now in the example, if some of the students came to the party's room, is it conceivable that the other unreferred student also came to a party? This is an example of contradiction. How? Because here in the example is written some of the students. If some of the students came to the party, then how we can say that the students that are unreferred are also present there? So this is the contradictory statement. In the next example, some, in fact all, of my friends are linguists. So this is also an example of contradiction because here it is mentioned that some, and in the meanwhile it is also mentioned that in fact all. So if some or all, so they both are contradictory to each other. So this is an example of contradictory. Either some of my friends are linguists or all of my friends are linguists. So one of the statement can be true, but if the both are considered at the same time, one must be false. Another example is the girl is her mother's own mother's mother. Her own mother's is giving you a contradictory statement. So this is the contradiction in the statements. Here what we have identified till now, that words carry the meaning, and when these words are used in the sentence, the overall meaning is conveyed through the sentence. So if the speaker identify the contradictory statement that is giving you some non-factual data, therefore we can say that this is the contradiction. So when the meaning of sentence contradict with the factual data, for example here the boy is female, so we cannot say that the boy is female, so the boy is male. So here is a contradiction of the factual data. Cat is vegetable, so cat cannot be vegetable. Cat and vegetables are both the different things, so this is also the contradiction of the factual data. If I say that my father was pregnant, how it is possible that a male can be pregnant? So this is a very funny example, that my father was pregnant. So the meaning of the sentence is actually contradict with the factual data. Intuitively. So in contradiction, if A and B are contradictory to each other, it means that they exclude each other. They will deny or negate each other. Informally, A and B are contradictory if there are no conceivable circumstances where they could be true at the same time. It means that if the statements are given in the same scenario, they either be false or the true, but they cannot be true at the same time. Example is here, Mary knows every book in the library, and in the second part of the sentence, there is a book in the library that Mary does not know. So here is this is a good example of contradictory. If Mary knows every book in the library, then how it is possible? How could it be possible that Mary does not know any one of the book in the library? So if what we have identified here, that there is no conceivable circumstances of the truthness of the statements at the same times, it means that either one is true or the other is true. So there must be one false statement in the sentence. So what we have identified till now, that contradiction defines some semantic relationship between sentences because we identify the meanings from the sentence. So sentence structures gives you a meaning, so we display a type of oppositeness in meaning. So when it gives oppositeness in meanings, and if there are contradiction in the statements of the speakers, then we will say that these are quite opposite to each other. So a speaker recognizes when the meaning of one sentence contradicts another sentence. So the sentence, there are some of the few of the examples in the next slides are given. Here is an example: Jack is dead, and in the other example, Jack is alive. If it is true that Jack is dead, then how it is possible that Jack is alive? So the both statements are opposite to each other. So they give oppositeness. So what we say, that the speakers, when give the statements, the listener have to identify the meanings, whether these statements are based on truth or not. So here is another example. John is here. John is not here. So if one says that John is here, then it means that he is here. It is true. But when he, on the other moment, he says that John is not here, then it means that he is giving a contradictory statements. So he is lying. So this is the examples of contradiction. Ali is bachelor. Ali is married. So at the same time, the both things cannot be happen. So both things cannot be true. So if he is bachelor, then he cannot be married. And if he is married, then he cannot be a bachelor at the same time. In the example number 4, Rabia's husband never does the washing. Rabia's husband sometimes does the washing. So as I have earlier said, that if the statements A and B are considered contradictory, if they both exclude each other. So in the same examples, Rabia's husband, if they never does the washing, then how it is possible that the person sometimes does the washing? Same is the case with the another example number 5. He is single. He is married. If the person says that he is single, it's okay. But in the next moment or in the next day, if he says he is married, how it is possible at the same time that the person is married or the single? So if these are both true, you have to be lying, because it means that the things cannot be happen at the same times, because someone can't be single and can't be married at the same times. Therefore, it is contradictory statements. In example number 6, Earth is flat and Earth is sphere. So people are saying that Earth is flat and some saying that Earth is sphere. So truly they can't be true at the same times. Either one or the other speaker could be true. For example, if it is flat, it can't be sphere, and if it is sphere, then it can't be flat. So what we have identified from these slides, that a contradiction is a sentence that is necessarily false as a result of the senses of the words in it. So whenever the sentence is not based on truth, it is considered as a contradictory statement. So if the speaker give a truth-based statement, and on the other way he gives a false statement, it creates a contradictory statement. So contradiction is a semantic relationship between the sentences which display a type of oppositeness in meanings. So if speaker recognizes when the meaning of one sentence contradicts another sentence, so the sentence are considered contradictory statements when one opposes the other. Here an activity is given. So if the statements are contradictory, then the students have to mark C against each statement. And if this statement is not contradictory, the student have to mark F against each statement. Now I will discuss ambiguity. A word, phrase, or sentence is considered to be ambiguous if it has more than one meaning. It means that ambiguity is the use of words that allow alternative interpretations. There are 4 types of ambiguities. These are also known as the language ambiguities. Number 1, lexical ambiguity, structural ambiguity, semantic ambiguity, and pragmatic ambiguity. So here I will discuss all these ambiguities one by one. First of all, I will discuss the lexical ambiguity. Sentence contains an idioms or words, so the term lexical ambiguity is used for the words that gives more than one meaning. For example, the word glasses. So glasses gives a 2 meaning, one for the drinking glasses and the other is for spectacles. And other examples of lexical ambiguity is, I bought a pen for my dog. So here the question arises, why you bought a pen for your dog? But pen, because dog is not able to write. He cannot write. So why we bought a pen for the dog? So if we consider it as a pen to write, then it will definitely create an ambiguity. But if a pen is used for the cage, then it sounds good. For example, if it is used as a cage, then I must say I bought a cage for my dog, then it's good, it sounds good. This is why we say that interpretation is not entirely clear in the lexical ambiguity. So because of the word's possible meanings, we cannot identify the actual meaning. Usually such types of ambiguities can be avoided by providing the context in the sentence. For example, if some says, my dog keeps destroying furniture at night, so I bought him a pen. So here the context is given, so you can identify the meaning of pen. Another example is, we should be discussion on violence on TV. So ambiguity is created here because of the word violence. Ambiguous, the sentence is ambiguous due to the word in violence. Whether you are watching violence on TV or there is a violence on TV. As I said, that the word gives ambiguity, create ambiguity. Just as here the word bank is given. Bank means river bank or even the financial institutions. In both cases we can use the word bank. Same is the case with the second, another word, young. So young we can even write for inexpert, or even we can use for young of age. So if we will not appropriately use these words, it will create an ambiguity. Now we will discuss structural ambiguity. In structural ambiguity, we find here that there are multiple syntactic trees are available. It means the structural ambiguity occurs when sentence has more than one syntactic tree. It means when there are multiple possible sentence or multiple interpretation is available. For example, if some says, I saw the boy with the telescope, here are some possible interpretations. Did you see the boy with the telescope? Or did you see the boy who was having a telescope? Therefore it is a structural ambiguity. Here is another examples with multiple possible sentence structures, or more than one interpretation can be possible. Sentence is, I killed a man with a toothbrush. I killed a man with toothbrush. One interpretation is, we have to kill someone or a man holding a toothbrush, means maybe he was brushing his teeth. And other interpretation might be that I killed a man with a tool, weapon or tool, that is toothbrush, that I used to kill him. I killed the man with the toothbrush. The weapon that I was holding at that time was toothbrush. So toothbrush was the tool that I used to kill a man. Now here is the phrase old men and women. So this phrase also gives two senses. One is, if we say old and we bracket men and women, then it represents that old modifies the whole phrase. If we use the bracket men and women, we put men and women in bracket, then old will modify the whole phrase. But if I put the bracket only an old man, it means that if I put the word old man in the bracket, it will only modify the old man. It modifies only the man, not the woman. So old men and women, whenever we write, gives a double interpretation, multiple interpretation, or multiple meanings. So it is in structural ambiguity. Here is another interesting example of structural ambiguity is the chicken is ready to eat. Now the question is here whether the chicken is ready to eat some meal, means chicken is ready to eat some food, or the chicken is ready to eat for someone, means the food in the form of the chicken is ready to eat by someone. Now we will discuss semantic ambiguity. Semantic ambiguity arises when a word or concept has an inherently diffuse meaning based on wide spreads of informal usage. Here idioms are given as an example of semantics ambiguity. Why? Because with idiomatic expression where definitions are rarely or never well defined and are presented in the context of a larger argument that invites a conclusion, therefore they do not provide a complete meaning. So we say that here a semantic ambiguity occurs. Now here is the solution of avoiding or resolving the semantic ambiguity, how to rephrase the sentence so that the intended meaning becomes clearer. So for example, in Norwegian, used in Nancy wants to marry a Norwegian, and in another example, a car used in John is looking for. So the both sentences are ambiguous, so they are based on ambiguity, so there are ambiguity in sentences. So how we can resolve this ambiguity? So by if we want to eliminate, or if we want to resolve this semantic ambiguity, we have to do that. We will put the definite article a as in first sentence. For example, if I say Nancy wants to marry a certain Norwegian, it means that I have make the statement somehow specific. So here again I can use a certain. After that a, or after the article, I will place here certain. So I will make a statement specific. So John is looking for a certain car. So this is the way to resolve the semantic ambiguity. If we consider this example in Norwegian, in which I said Nancy wants to marry a Norwegian, it means that it depends on whether the speaker has in mind a particular person to whom Nancy wants to marry. Now here I want to discuss pragmatic ambiguity. So pragmatic ambiguity, according to Bolton in 1996, he said that when the statement is not specific and the context does not provide the information needed to clarify this statement, then we say that there exists a pragmatic ambiguity. Here I remember the quote of Dr. Weiss in 2005. He said that the pragmatic ambiguity occurs in the socio-cultural and contextual conditions that affect the appropriate use of language in communication. Therefore, we can see that pragmatic ambiguity occurs when the speakers and the hearer disagree on what the current situation is, as we can find in the example number 1, when there are two speakers and they say, I will meet you tomorrow. So they maybe are not agree to meet the other day. Another example of pragmatic ambiguity is chicken is ready to eat. Here that I already have discussed in structural ambiguity, because it is structurally ambiguous as well as the pragmatic ambiguity is in this sentence. So how the chicken can be ready to eat? Is chicken ready to eat something, or chicken is ready to eat by someone? So here is the pragmatic ambiguity. So what we have identified from this topic, that ambiguity is doubtfulness or uncertainty of meanings or even an intentions. So if some unclear statements or indefinite words are used, or expressions of meanings, or if there are vagueness or deceptiveness in the sentences, or if there are multiple meanings in the sentences, or if there are the words that gives a multiple meanings, then we say that the ambiguity exists or ambiguity occurs. Here in structural ambiguity, I discussed these examples. I killed a man with a toothbrush. So I told you that how it is possible that a man can kill someone with the toothbrush. So this occurs because of the way the propositions occurs. With a toothbrush, here the word toothbrush modify the noun, the man. Or if it is modified with the killed, then it will definitely give some other meanings or some other interpretation. So it depends on which way our brain wants to connect this propositional phrase to the noun or to the verb. So this is called structural ambiguity. Here is the quiz at the end of the slides. So you students have to prepare this quiz. For this quiz, you have to identify the ambiguous sentences and you have to explain why this sentence is ambiguous. Now I will discuss with you a semantic anomaly. Anomaly is a semantic oddness that can be traced to the meanings of the predicates in the sentence concerns, or it may be defined as an anomaly expression have no conventional interpretation. Therefore, it is considered or referred as a meaninglessness. So we may say that anomaly is a violation of normal semantic rules to create nonsense of something that may be irregular, or that may be contradictory, or that may be inconsistent. Furthermore, we can say that an expression is anomalous when the meaning of its individual words are incompatible. If the speakers have the knowledge of the semantic system of his language, then he can understand whether the sentence is meaningful or meaninglessness, based on meaninglessness. So here the two examples are given. One is that the pictures laughed. So question here is that whether the picture laughed. So this is a contradictory. This is very nonsense, or this is based on something that is not based on facts. So in another example, pictures a Henry. So the both of the examples are based on anomalous expressions. So these are the examples of anomaly. In many of the poetic form, we have seen that the poet have used some of the anomalous words or the meaning that he has given that is actually a meaninglessness, based on meaninglessness, that are irregular or maybe a contradictory or inconsistent. So we have seen that poet violate the semantic rules, just as in one of the poem the poet used a grief ago. A grief is something, the feelings, but how can he use it with in his poetry? So grief is something anomalous here. So dark green leaves rustles furiously. So here the words dark green leaves is also giving something meaningless. So this is also an anomalous expressions or examples of anomaly. Another examples of anomalous expression is colorless green ideas sleep furiously. So Noam Chomsky has given this example. So here he used the colorless. Colorless means without color. So in another way he said how the colorless, and in the meanwhile he says green. So sometimes he says without color, and on the other hand he says green. So green is a color, but before he mentioned that it is colorless. So he gives something that is very odd, that is meaningless, based on meaningless. So it gives a contradictory statement sometimes. So we can say that it is he is violating the semantic rule. In the second example, Christopher is killing phonemes. The meaning of the predicate kills and phonemes cannot be combined in this way. So anomaly involves the violation of the selectional restrictions. So here is another violation of semantic rules. Same is the case with another examples. Jack's courage chewed the bones. So Jack's courage and chewed. So these are given in anomalous expression. So the next example, James sliced the idea. So ideas can be sliced. So sliced is given in anomalous expression. Table likes basketball. Such a meaninglessness in this sentence. And so this is also an anomalous expression, or the sentence is having an anomalous expression. Sleep furiously. So if the person is sleeping, so he is in calm or peace, is in calm or in restless in a rest positions. So he is relaxing, he is actually relaxed. So but he cannot furious at that time when he is sleeping. So this is also an example of anomalous expression when there is something nonsense is going to be happen, or giving meaning, it is not based on meaningfulness. So this is an example of anomaly. So in the above example, colorless green ideas sleep furiously. The meaning of color includes the semantic feature. It means colorless means without color. But when it is combined with the adjective green, which has the feature, it means that green in color. How can something be both without color or green in color? So this is an example of anomalous expression, or this is an example of semantic anomaly. Anomalous, so we can say now that anomalous occurs in many ways. It may have contradictory semantic properties, or when nonsense words are used, or it may be the violation of semantic rules. Here we can see that anomalous expression is given. He killed the dead umbrella. So the word dead umbrella, is it giving some meaningful expression? No. So it is an example of anomalous. How an umbrella can be killed? So in another example, John killed the rabbit, but rabbit ran away. So it gives an contradictory statements. So what we have already studied, that anomaly is a violation of normal semantic rules just to create nonsense of something that may be in contradictory. So it is an example of contradictory. If the rabbit is killed by John, then how a rabbit can run away? So this is a contradictory statement as well. He wanted to buy a triangular square. Here is another example of an anomaly. So triangular square, something is contradictory, something is meaninglessness based on meaninglessness. So this is anomalous expression. So anomaly is uninterpretable semantic senses. It means that nonsense words. So if we have the knowledge of semantic system of a language, then we can understand the anomalous expression or anomalous sentences. As we know that we studied the anomalous in the syntactic structures that gave some interpretations. So syntactic structure determines the linguistics behavior. Therefore, anomalous is also giving us the interpretation of the meanings, whether the sentence is based on meaningfulness or it is meaninglessness. So anomalous is actually a nonsense word that is actually in a contradictory, that may be inconsistent. So anomalous is something that is based on meaninglessness. So anomalous is actually the violation of the normal semantic rules. A semantic anomaly is a bit of language that does what it's meant to do, but is abnormal, like that word problem, combining trouble and problem. But there is vast array of much more sophisticated semantic anomalies than that. A sentence that is syntactically well formed but semantically meaningless is known as an anomalous sentence. Just as in the example, he killed the dead umbrella, is giving us meaninglessness. So it's based on meaninglessness. Therefore, it is a semantically meaninglessness. So it is an example of anomaly. So all the examples of English sentences that are defined here make no sense at all, because they include the words that have no meanings. They are uninterpretable, or they can be interpreted only if some meanings for each nonsense words can be dreamed up. So this is an anomalous expression. As in this example a grief ago, when the poet used the word grief with ago, he was adding a durational feature to grief for poetic effect. So while the noun phrase is anomalous, it evokes certain feelings. Though some phrases violate some semantic rules, so we can understand them. Breaking the rules create imagery desired. So the fact that we are able to understand or at least interpret an anomalous expression and at the same time recognize their anomalous nature demonstrates our knowledge of the semantic system and even the semantic properties of the language. Here at the end of this topic, the quiz is given here about the anomaly or the semantic anomaly. So students have to identify which of the sentence is based on meaningfulness or which of the sentences are given in anomalous expressions. So here is the quiz for you. The first sentence is, Henry drew a picture. Is it meaningful? Or an anomalous expression is given here. Picture a Henry drew. Is it meaningful? This idea is red. The idea sleeps. Is it meaningful? Hilda's cow is a beautiful animal. And last is, the window dripped to the floor. So find out the anomalous sentences here.